Stormfront Publishing presents Shadows of Valor. Written by James Krieger and Adolf Reicher. Performed by Thomas Richter. Chapter 1. The object of war is not to die for your country, but to make the other bastard die for his. General George S. Patton. April 27, 1945, 1437, local time. Third Army Headquarters, Regensburg, Bavaria. The Wehrmacht major stood ramrod straight despite the shackles. Blood caked his field gray uniform where shrapnel had torn through the wool. His iron cross caught the afternoon light streaming through the blown-out windows of the commandeered brewery that served as Patton's forward HQ. The brewery stank of stale beer and cordite. Shell holes gaped in the roof, letting in shafts of dusty light that illuminated scattered papers, overturned furniture, and the detritus of hasty German evacuation. Maps covered every flat surface, tacked to walls pocked with bullet holes, spread across scarred tables, weighted down with spent shell casings. Radio operators hunched over SCR 300 sets in the corner, their constant chatter mixing with the grinding roar of armor outside. Lieutenant Colonel Boyer pushed the major forward, forcing him into a chair across from Patton's map table. Found him 2 clicks east, trying to slip through our lines in a staff car. Boyer dropped a leather document case on the table. Had this with him, along with enough gold bars to buy his way to Argentina. Patton still didn't look up from his maps. "What's in the case, Alec?" "See for yourself, sir." Boyer pulled out rolled blueprints, spreading them across the tactical maps. S runes stamped in the corners. Technical drawings. Underground schematics. Now Patton looked up. His pale eyes moved from the blueprints to the major. Through the shattered windows came the sounds of the Third Army digesting another German city. M4 Shermans clanked down cobblestone streets, their tracks chewing ancient stones to powder. Infantry squads kicked indoors, the crack of M1 Garands echoing between buildings as they rooted out the last Wehrmacht holdouts. Somewhere to the east, 155mm long toms hammered a stubborn pocket of resistance, each round shaking plaster from the brewery's damaged ceiling. Major Bludd. Patton studied the architectural plans. His ivory-handled Colt 45 lay within easy reach. "That's German for bloodstone, isn't it?" "Ja, Herr General." "Speak English, you Nazi son of a bitch." Patton's aide, Lieutenant Colonel Alec Boyer, stepped forward. The major's jaw tightened. "Yes, General." Outside, a burst of machine gun fire. American, the slower chug of a .30 caliber, not the ripping canvas sound of an MG-42. Glass tinkled as a sniper's bullet found another window somewhere down the block. The radio man called in coordinates. Within seconds, the whump of 60mm mortars answered. The headquarters buzzed with controlled chaos. Staff officers plotted the next day's advance, marking blue arrows stabbing deeper into Bavaria. A haggard medic stumbled through, blood on his sleeves, grabbing fresh morphine syrettes from a supply crate. 2 military policemen dragged in another prisoner, Volkssturm by the look of his armband, old enough to be grandfather to the Hitler Youth they'd captured that morning. Sherman tanks rumbled past outside, heading east. The Third Army had crossed the Danube 2 days ago. The war had weeks left, maybe less. But Patton wasn't looking at tactical maps anymore. He studied the blueprints Boyer had taken from the fleeing major, architectural drawings stamped with SS runes. "Tell me about Project Eisenherz." Patton finally looked up. His pale eyes could have been chipped from ice. Blood's throat worked. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cool April air flowing through the shell holes. "I require guarantees." "You'll get one guarantee." Patton lit a cigar, the match flame steady despite the tremor of distant artillery. Smoke wreathed his head. "You help me. You don't hang with the rest of your SS buddies. That's it. That's all." The major glanced at the MPs flanking him. Hard-faced men from the 6th Armored Division, their M1 helmets scarred from hedgerow fighting. One had a German stick grenade tucked in his belt as a souvenir. The other's uniform showed the faded bloodstains of close combat. No help there. Outside, the systematic destruction continued. A squad of engineers detonated satchel charges in a suspected ammunition dump 2 blocks over. The explosion rattled the remaining brewery windows, sent a fresh cascade of plaster dust from the ceiling. Through the gaps in the wall, Patton could see smoke columns rising across Regensburg, black pillars marking where the Wehrmacht's final strongpoints burned. The facility is 17 kilometers northeast, abandoned salt mine. We expanded it in 1943. Bludd's English carried a slight Berlin accent. 700 meters below ground. What's down there? A pause. In the silence, they could hear the rattle of a .50 caliber somewhere close, walking bursts across a building facade. The radio man called in another fire mission. Boyer penciled notes on a clipboard, his writing precise despite the building's occasional shudder. People. Boyer frowned. Prisoners? Slave labor? No. Bludd met Patton's stare. Volunteers, scientists, soldiers, children of high-ranking party members, all in cryogenic suspension. The brewery fell silent except for distant artillery. Even the radio operators stopped their chatter. Through the window, a Sherman clanked past, its turret traversing left, the long 76-millimeter gun tracking something unseen. Infantry rode on its back, rifles ready, faces masked with dust and exhaustion. Patton stood slowly, his riding boots clicking on the rubble-strewn floor. Glass crunched under his heels. He circled the major like a predator, noting the man's decorations. Iron Cross First Class, Winter Campaign Medal, wound badge in gold. This wasn't some rear echelon clerk. You're telling me the Krauts figured out how to freeze people? Since 1942. Limited success. Perhaps 30% survival rate upon revival. Bludd's voice dropped. But the technology improved. The last subjects. How many? 87. Sealed in January when the Soviets crossed the Vistula. Patton stopped pacing. He looked at Boyer, then back to Bludd. The implications hung in the air like cordite smoke. And they're still alive. The generators are automatic. Diesel reserves for 18 months. After that... The major shrugged. Jesus Christ. Boyer pulled off his glasses, cleaned them. A nervous habit. Condensation from his breath had fogged the lenses. General, we need to notify Chef. Eisenhower needs to... Eisenhower doesn't need to know a goddamn thing. Patton's voice could have cut steel. Not yet. He walked to the window. Below, his tankers loaded ammunition. Good men. Men who'd bled across France and Germany. A medic jeep bounced past, red crosses on white circles barely visible through the mud. How many more would die before Berlin fell? How many in the next war? Because there would be a next war. With the Russians, most likely. Already 50 miles east, the lines of demarcation were hardening. Yesterday, a patrol from the 11th Armored had nearly exchanged fire with Soviet reconnaissance units over a disputed crossroads. The alliance was dying, even as the enemy did. And wars weren't won by the biggest guns anymore. They were won by technology, by science, by time. Time to train, time to develop, time to prepare. Whoever could stretch time, bend it to their will, they'd own the future. Can your people wake them up? Patton asked without turning. The technical staff evacuated west, but I know the procedures. I helped design the protocols. Outstanding. Patton faced him. Behind Bludd, a map of Europe showed the front lines in grease pencil, blue advancing, red retreating, the continent being carved up like a Christmas goose. Major Bludd, you just became the most valuable Nazi in Bavaria. Boyer, get me Colonel Koch from G2. Tell him we need a containment team. Engineers, medics, the works. Complete operational security. Sir, with respect. That's an order, Alec. Boyer saluted and left, stepping over rubble. Patton approached Bludd, close enough to smell the cordite and fear sweat on his uniform, see the desperation barely hidden behind Prussian discipline. Here's the deal, Major. You get me into that facility. You wake up whoever I tell you to wake up. In exchange, you live. Maybe in a cell, maybe doing hard labor, But you live." Patton smiled. It wasn't pleasant. "But if you're lying, if this is some elaborate Nazi bullshit, I'll personally put a bullet in your head and piss on your corpse. Clear?" "Crystal clear, General." "Outstanding." Patton turned to the MPs. "Clean him up. Get him some chow. We roll in 2 hours." The guards led Bludd out. Alone, Patton studied the blueprints again. Level after level burrowing into Bavarian bedrock. Storage areas marked Lebenserhaltung, life support, power systems, medical bays. If even half of what the major claimed was true. Thunder rumbled. Not artillery, real thunder. Spring storms rolling in from the Alps, black clouds pregnant with rain. Patton lit another cigar and watched his army prepare to move. Outside, sergeants bellowed orders, engines roared to life, weapons were cleaned, checked, loaded. 2 hours to change history. The convoy formed up in the brewery's courtyard as rain began to fall. 4 jeeps, their .30 caliber machine guns wrapped in canvas against the weather. 5 M3 half-tracks loaded with infantry, the men huddled under ponchos but weapons ready. An M5 tractor growled at the rear, towing a 57mm anti-tank gun, insurance against any nasty surprises. The whole formation reeked of diesel exhaust and gun oil. "Mount up!" a Sergeant Major Williams bellowed over the engine noise. Veterans of a dozen assault crossings, the men moved with practiced efficiency. Ammunition boxes were secured. Bars were positioned for quick deployment. Someone had chalked "Berlin" or "Bust" on a half-track's armor plate. Rain turned the dirt roads to soup within minutes. The convoy crawled through Regensburg's outskirts, past burned-out Opel trucks and dead horses still in their traces. A Kubelwagen sat upside down in a shell crater, its occupants long gone. The lead jeep's windshield was folded down despite the rain, better visibility for spotting ambushes. Bludd sat between 2 MPs in the second jeep, giving directions through clenched teeth. Water streamed off his helmet, soaking through the OD jacket they'd given him. His wrists were still shackled, the chain rattling with each pothole. "Left at the tree line." His cuffed hands gestured awkwardly. "Then, 2 kilometers." Patton rode in the staff car, third vehicle back. Sergeant Major Williams had insisted. Standard procedure for approaching an unsecured objective. The general wore his tanker jacket, the leather dark with rain. A Thompson submachine gun rested across his lap, 30-round magazine locked and loaded. Boyer sat beside him, map case wrapped in cellophane, trying to track their position in the failing light. The forest closed in like a green tunnel. Pine and birch, untouched by war. No shell craters here, no burned tanks rusting in the ditches. Just shadows deepening toward black and the smell of rain on pine needles. The convoy slowed to walking pace. Every curve could hide an ambush. Every fallen log could conceal a Panzerfaust team. "Stop." Bludd leaned forward. "Close now. Maybe 500 meters. Better to approach on foot." Captain Morris raised a fist. The convoy halted, engines idling. Rain drummed on steel helmets. Through the trees, nothing but more trees. But Bludd seemed certain. "Send scouts forward." Patton's voice crackled over the radio. "I want eyes on this place before we commit." Morris nodded to Sergeant Henderson. "Take Jackson and Kowalski. See what's up there." 3 shapes melted into the forest. The rest of the convoy waited, engines ticking as they cooled. Rain pattered on canvas. Men checked weapons for the 100th time. 5 minutes. 10. Henderson materialized from the trees like a ghost. Mud covered him to the waist. "Bunker complex, sir. Just like the Kraut said. 4 MG positions, interlocking fields. 50 meters of cleared ground all around, maybe platoon strength inside." "Any movement?" "Negative. But they're in there. Saw cigarette smoke from one of the slits." Captain Morris climbed from his jeep, straightening his helmet. "All right, deploy the men. Let's see if we can talk them out." The infantry dismounted into the mud. 2nd Platoon, Baker Company, 26th Infantry Regiment, the Blue Spaders. Veterans who'd survived the Siegfried Line, who knew German defensive positions like their own nightmares. They spread through the trees, rifles at high port, moving in the bent-knee crouch that kept their silhouettes low. Morris took point himself, a white flag tied to an M1 rifle. Standard parley protocol. Behind him, 2 squads spread out, ready to provide covering fire. The rest held back with the vehicles. They emerged from the tree line slow and careful. The bunker squatted in its clearing like a concrete toad. Through the rain, the firing slits watched them with dark eyes. Morris held the white flag high, water streaming from the fabric. "Attention, German forces!" His voice carried across the clearing without a bullhorn, parade ground volume. "This is Captain Morris, United States Third Army. The war is over. Hitler is dead. Berlin has fallen. You have fought with honor. There is no shame in surrender." Silence. Just rain on concrete. Morris took another step forward. "We guarantee fair treatment under the Geneva Convention. Hot food, medical care, and—" A voice erupted from the bunker, young, almost breaking with emotion. "Wir haben geschworen. We have sworn." Morris tried again, switching to the German he'd learned at the point. "Der Krieg ist vorbei. The war is over. Nein!" The voice cracked like a boy's. Probably was a boy. "We have sworn to die defending this place, for the Führer, for the future, Tod vor Schande. Death before dishonor," Henderson muttered behind Morris. "Unfortunate." "Yeah." Morris began backing away, still holding the flag high. "Real unfortunate." They made it halfway to the tree line before Morris dropped the flag and dove. "Incoming!" 4 MG-42s opened up simultaneously. The sound was like ripping canvas magnified 1,000 times. Hitler's buzzsaw, 1,200 rounds per minute from each gun. Tracers created a lattice of death across the clearing, green lines in the gray rain. Morris hit the mud hard, white flag forgotten, crawling for the nearest depression as bullets snapped overhead. "Return fire!" Patton roared into the radio from back at the convoy position. "Move those vehicles up! Kill those Nazi bastards!" The forest erupted. Bar gunners opened up from the tree line, trying to suppress the bunker apertures. The heavy .30-06 rounds sparked off concrete but couldn't penetrate the angled slits. Riflemen worked closer, using trees for cover, but the Germans had positioned their guns perfectly. Every approach was covered. "We need the vehicles," a sergeant's voice crackled over the radio. "Bring up that 57. The convoy roared to life. Half-tracks ground forward through the mud, infantry riding the sides and firing from the move. The M5 tractor growled behind them, the anti-tank gun bouncing on its trails. Morris and his scouts were pinned in the open. Henderson tried to reach a shell crater 10 meters away. An MG tracked him. He made it 3 steps before the burst caught him, spinning him around like a rag doll. "Smoke! Lay down smoke!" White phosphorus grenades arced from the tree line, popping in front of the bunker. Chemical smoke billowed, but the rain thinned it fast. The MGs kept firing, using intersecting beaten zones they'd registered long ago. The lead half-track lurched into the clearing, its .50 caliber hammering at the firing slits. Sparks flew, but the angle was wrong. An MG swung toward it. Rounds punched through the armor plate like paper, sparking off the engine block. The vehicle slewed sideways, bleeding smoke. "Get that gun up here now!" The M5 tractor ground forward, mud spraying from its tracks. Under fire, the crew worked to unhitch the 57mm gun. Private Danvers threw himself across the gun shield as bullets sparked off steel, sending his helmet flying. They muscled it around, sighting on the bunker doors. "Clear the line!" The 57mm barked, muzzle flash lighting the rain. The armor-piercing round hit the steel doors dead center, sending a shower of sparks but barely denting them. "Again! Hit them again!" The crew worked like demons, ramming shells home. The second round buckled the doors inward. The third punched through. Concrete dust drifted through the rain, but the MGs kept firing, barrels glowing red despite the weather. First squad had worked around the left flank, moving through thick undergrowth. Corporal Jackson led the way. They caught one MG nest from the side, rifle grenades and concentrated bar fire. The position went quiet. The flamethrower operator saw his chance. He scrambled from the shell hole, tanks sloshing on his back. 20 meters, 15. An MG tracked toward him but couldn't depress enough. He triggered the igniter. A jet of burning fuel arced through the rain, splashing into the second gun position. The flames clung to everything: concrete, steel, flesh. Screaming came from inside the bunker. The MG stopped firing. "Pour it on!" Morris kept the pressure up. "Third squad, smoke grenades!" White phosphorus grenades popped in front of the remaining positions, creating a chemical smoke screen that even rain couldn't dissipate. Under its cover, more infantry rushed forward. The anti-tank gun fired 3 more rounds in rapid succession. The bunker doors finally gave way, steel twisted inward like aluminum foil. Through the gap, defenders could be seen moving. White cloth appeared in the 3rd MG position, a helmet on a rifle barrel. "Cease fire! Cease fire!" The shooting died away gradually, like thunder receding. Ears rang in the sudden quiet. Rain hissed on hot gun barrels. But the 4th MG nest erupted again, a last fanatic making his stand. The flamethrower operator was already moving, sidling along the bunker wall. Another burst of liquid fire. Screaming, then silence. Germans stumbled from the bunker, hands high. Young kids mostly, their field gray uniforms scorched and torn. Several were burned, skin blistering in the rain. But 3 wore the oak leaf collar tabs of SS officers. Those came out last, hands raised but heads still arrogant. 18 prisoners, sir. Master Sergeant Williams did a quick count while medics worked on the wounded. 8 dead inside. We lost 3. 2 wounded. Get them to the aid station. Patton finally left his vehicle, Williams hovering like a protective shadow. Rain had plastered the general's gray hair to his skull. He approached the prisoners, boots squelching in mud mixed with blood. The lead SS officer met his gaze without flinching. Blonde, blue-eyed, Hitler's wet dream even covered in concrete dust. "Verrater!" The officer spat at Bludd's feet. "Traitor." Patton's pistol came out smooth and fast. The ivory handle cracked across the officer's jaw. Bone gave way. The man dropped into the mud, blood mixing with rainwater. "Anyone else want a share?" Silence except for the rain and the moaning wounded. "Didn't think so. Randall, secure these bastards. Engineers up front. We need this place cleared before anyone goes in." Patton stepped back from the blown entrance, lighting another cigar under the shelter of a half-track's canvas. Standard procedure. Never be the first through a door, especially one the SS had been defending to the death. "Skoog! Get your team up here!" Sergeant Skoog emerged from behind an M3, his engineer squad in tow. Canvas satchels of tools, mine detectors, 100-foot coils of rope. They looked like heavily armed mechanics. Skoog himself was built like a fireplug, short, broad, with hands that seemed too large for detail work. As he approached, he stumbled over a root, caught himself, then dropped his flashlight in the mud. "Shit. Sorry, General." He bent to retrieve it, knocking his helmet askew. His hands shook slightly as he wiped mud from the lens. The other engineers exchanged knowing looks. "What have we got, General?" "SS bunker. Fanatics defending it. You know what that means." "Yeah." Skoog fumbled for his tobacco pouch, spilling half of it before managing to stuff a wad in his cheek. "Means they had time to rig surprises. Peterson, Watts, Murphy, you're with me. Rest of you stage the equipment." Patton grabbed Skoog's arm. "Take your time, Sergeant. Whatever's down there has been waiting since January. It can wait another few hours." "Roger that, sir." Skoog attempted to salute, smacked himself in the face with his muddy flashlight, and grimaced. But something changed as the engineer team approached the entrance. Skoog's hands steadied. His movements became precise, economical. The nervous energy vanished like smoke. He approached the blown doorway with the focus of a surgeon, studying the concrete frame where the doors had been. "Smart bastards." He pointed to scorch marks on the walls with a rock-steady finger. "Doors were rigged, but our anti-tank rounds set them off. Lucky break." They disappeared inside. Patton found a relatively dry spot under a pine tree, his command group forming a protective perimeter. Sergeant Major Williams stood close enough to tackle him if shooting started again. Boyer spread maps on a half-track's hood, trying to work despite the rain. Minutes crawled by. The radio crackled with Skoog's updates. First level clear, moving to stairs. More waiting. Patton's cigar went out. He didn't bother relighting it. Around him, the aftermath of battle settled into routine. Medics finished with the wounded. Graves registration began their grim work. Someone had found a tarp to cover the American bodies. Hold up. Skoog's voice, tight with concentration. Tripwire, 15 meters down the main stairs. Can you clear it? Working on it. This one's artistic. Dual trigger system. Sneaky. 20 minutes of silence. Patton paced, boots squelching in the mud. The rain had tapered to a drizzle, but fog was rolling in from the forest, visibility dropping. Up above, they could hear occasional metallic clanks. Probably Skoog's team staging equipment, dropping half of it if the sergeant's usual clumsiness held true. But down in that hole, working with death, Skoog would be steady as bedrock. Clear. Moving deeper. An hour passed. Then 2. The sun, invisible behind clouds, sank toward the western horizon. Patton went through 3 more cigars. Reports filtered in from other units, the push toward Munich continuing, scattered resistance, nothing major. The war grinding to its inevitable end while he waited for one sergeant to clear one bunker. General. Boyer approached with a thermos. Coffee? Rather have bourbon. After we see what's down there, sir. They drank in silence, listening to the engineer's progress. Every few minutes, another trap, pressure plates, more tripwires. The SS had turned their retreat into a death trap. Holy moly. Skoog's voice crackled with static and adrenaline, but no nervousness. Timer device. Big one. Mechanical, not electrical. How long? 40 minutes on the clock, maybe less. These mechanisms drift. Can you disarm it? That's what they pay me for. But General, might want to pull everyone back another 100 meters, just in case I have an off day. Strange thing about Skoog. Put him in the mess hall and he'd drop every third tray. Hand him a wrench and he'd fumble it 9 times out of 10. But put him face to face with enough explosives to vaporize a city block and his hands turned rock steady, like the danger calmed something inside him that nothing else could touch. Patton didn't move, neither did his command team. If Skoog failed, a few 100 meters wouldn't matter. The whole hillside would come down. 30 minutes. 20. Radio silence except for Skoog's occasional muttering. Patton found himself holding his breath. Got it. Relief flooded Skoog's voice. Timer's dead. But Christ, they packed enough TNT down here to make a new valley. What's your status? 3rd sub-level. Temperatures dropping fast. Frost on the walls. We can hear generators running deeper down. Any more surprises? Probably, but we've got their pattern now. Give us another hour. Another hour. The fog thickened, turning the forest into a gray wall. Sentries called challenges to shadows, everyone jumpy after the firefight. Patton's feet were numb from standing in the mud, but he wouldn't sit, not while his men were risking their asses in the dark. General. Williams appeared with a squad of fresh troops. Relief detail for the perimeter. The boys who did the assault need rest. Good thinking, Sergeant Major. Patton watched the exhausted infantry stumble toward the trucks, replaced by men who hadn't spent the afternoon killing and being killed. Make sure the wounded got off okay. Last half-track left 20 minutes ago. They'll be in surgery within the hour. Outstanding. The radio crackled. Skoog here. Main generator room secured. No traps, but... General, you need to see this. Temperatures near freezing down here. Something big behind the next set of doors. Is it clear? Clear as I can make it, but recommend minimum personnel. And sir, tell Major Bludd we need him. There's control panels down here labeled in German. Technical stuff. Patton flicked his dead cigar into the mud. 3 hours of waiting. Time to see what the SS had died protecting. Boyer, Williams, you're with me. Get Bludd up here. Rest of you, maintain position. They entered the bunker, flashlights cutting through the darkness. The blown doors hung twisted on their hinges. Inside, Skoog's chalk marks showed cleared areas, arrows pointing to disarmed traps, skull symbols where they'd found the nasty ones. The stairs descended into the earth, concrete giving way to carved rock. Their breath misted in the cold air. Water dripped steadily, already forming ice where it pooled. 20 meters down, scorch marks on the walls showed where Skoog had dealt with the tripwire. Deeper. The temperature plummeted. Frost coated every surface. Their footsteps echoed in the silence. "Through here, General." Skoog waited at a junction, face haggard with exhaustion and cold. "Generator room's massive. Whatever they're powering, it's big." They followed him through a maze of corridors, guided by chalk arrows on the walls. The sound of diesels grew louder, a deep thrumming felt through the floor. Then they emerged into the cathedral-sized generator room. "Holy cow," Williams muttered. Massive diesels in ranked rows, control panels covering entire walls, and cold. So cold their breath came in clouds. Skoog's team huddled near one of the running generators, trying to steal some warmth from the engine. Skoog himself had knocked over a toolbox getting there, wrenches scattered across the floor, but nobody mentioned it. They all knew the phenomenon. In the mess hall, Skoog couldn't pour coffee without spilling. Down here, surrounded by enough machinery to power a small city and whatever deadly surprises might still be hidden, he'd been sure as a Swiss watchmaker. "The interesting stuff's through there." Skoog pointed to double doors marked with radiation warnings. "But that's as far as we went. Figured you'd want first look." Patton approached the doors. Ice covered the handles. Through the reinforced glass windows, he could see his breath fogging the glass from the inside. Whatever lay beyond was colder still. "Bludd." "Yeah, General." The major stepped forward, studying the control panel beside the doors. "The cryo-storage chamber. Temperature must be maintained constantly. These readings." He tapped gauges. "Optimal. They are still viable." "Open it." Bludd worked the controls. Locks disengaged with pneumatic hisses. The doors swung open, releasing a wave of Arctic air that made everyone step back. And then they saw them. The bunker descended into earth. Concrete stairs, water dripping from the ceiling. Emergency lighting cast orange shadows. 20 meters down, blast doors yawned open. Someone had left in a hurry. The walls sweated condensation. German efficiency had carved these passages from living rock, but moisture seeped through hairline cracks, pooling on the steel grate floor. The air tasted of machine oil and something else. Ozone, like the aftermath of lightning. Pipes ran along the ceiling, thick as a man's torso, crusted with frost that grew heavier with each downward step. "Generator room first." Bludd led them through a maze of corridors. The air grew cold. Too cold for April. The refrigeration systems require massive power. They found it, a cathedral of diesel generators, each the size of a truck. Half ran, half sat silent. Fuel gauges read 40%. The generator room stretched 3 stories high, carved from solid bedrock. Massive diesels hummed in ranks, their vibration felt through boot soles. Cooling pipes snaked overhead like frozen serpents, wrapped in asbestos insulation that leaked white fibers into the air. Control panels lined one wall, hundreds of gauges, switches, warning lights blinking in synchronized patterns. The noise was overwhelming. Diesel roar, coolant pumps, the deep bass note of industrial refrigeration working at capacity. "Through here," Bludd's voice echoed. Double doors marked with radiation warnings. Beyond, the temperature plunged. Patton's breath misted. Ice crystals clung to pipes running along the ceiling. Then they saw them. Glass cylinders, each 3 meters tall, arranged in rows like a morgue. Frost obscured the contents, but Patton could make out shapes, human shapes, floating in pale blue fluid. The chamber stretched the length of a football field. Cylinders stood in perfect ranks, each connected by a web of tubes and power cables that disappeared into grated channels in the floor. The blue fluid inside seemed to glow with its own inner light, some chemical luminescence that turned the frozen occupants into ghosts. Ice crystals formed delicate patterns on the glass, like frost on winter windows, but these windows looked in on stopped time. The ceiling arched 20 feet overhead, lined with more pipes that dripped steady condensation. Where drops hit the cylinders, they froze instantly, creating stalactites of ice. The floor was polished concrete, slick with frost, marked with German stenciling indicating power loads and flow rates. Everything gleamed with sterile efficiency. The Nazis had built this place to last centuries. Mother of God. Boyer crossed himself. Patton walked the rows. Each cylinder bore a brass nameplate. SS Sturmbannführer Wilhelm Krauss, Dr. Ingrid Hoffmann. Some civilian names. 3 smaller cylinders at the far end. Children. He stopped at one cylinder, wiping frost from the nameplate with his sleeve. Inside, a man floated in perfect stillness. SS uniform, medals still pinned to the tunic. Eyes closed, face peaceful. No decay, no death, just suspension. The monitoring equipment beside each cylinder showed steady traces. Heartbeat, 1 per minute. Brain activity, minimal but present. Temperature, minus 40 degrees Celsius. Status panels here. Bludd checked gauges. All optimal. Core temperature, minus 40 degrees Celsius. Cellular activity suspended but viable. The control station looked like something from a U-boat. Brass fittings, analog gauges, switches labeled in Gothic German script. Charts on clipboards showed maintenance logs, the last entries from January. Everything documented with Teutonic precision. How to freeze a human. How to store them. How to bring them back. How do we wake them? Gradual warming, 12 hours minimum, then chemical revival protocols. Perhaps 50% will survive. Perhaps more. Patton studied the frozen faces. Scientists who'd built rockets, designed jets. Soldiers who'd learned hard lessons in Russia, all suspended between heartbeats while the world moved on. Behind them, more chambers branched off. Through reinforced glass windows, Patton glimpsed other rooms. Medical facilities with operating tables, decontamination chambers, what looked like classrooms with German technical manuals still on the desks. An entire infrastructure for managing the frozen. Sergeant Randall. Sir? Nobody comes down here without my personal authorization. Post guards in shifts. Anyone asks. We found a weapons cache. Nothing more. Yes, sir. Patton turned slowly, taking in the scale. The quiet hum of machinery maintaining impossible life. Frost crunching under boots. His breath misting in air that belonged in January, not April. How many more could this place hold? This is merely Section A. Bludd gestured to sealed doors at the chamber's far end. The facility has 12 sections. 6 completed, 6 under construction when we ceased operations. Through those doors, darkness beckoned. More tunnels, more chambers, more rows of the waiting dead. A labyrinth of stopped time buried under Bavarian rock. Patton could feel the weight of the mountain above, the pressure of secrets that could reshape the world. Numbers, Major. Give me numbers. Each section holds 300 units, 1,800 in the finished areas. The planned expansion would have accommodated 4,000 total. Bludd moved to a wall panel, pulled open a schematic protected by thick plastic. Plus support infrastructure, armories, food storage, medical facilities, a complete underground city. The schematic showed the facility's true scope, level after level descending into earth. Barracks for support staff, kitchens with walk-in freezers still stocked. An armory Bludd claimed held enough weapons for a battalion. Vehicle storage with tanks under tarps, half-tracks on blocks, motorcycles in neat rows, all waiting for an awakening that might never come. Jesus! Boyer studied the blueprints. This goes down 17 levels. The lower levels remain unfinished, but the engineering is sound. Given resources, Bludd shrugged. 6 months to complete, perhaps less. Above them, the Third Army rolled east, tanks crushing the last resistance, infantry clearing villages, the war almost won. Below them, another war waited, frozen, patient. Thank you for listening to this audiobook. I'm Thomas Richter, and it's been an honor to share this story with you. If you're ready for your next mission, we've got a full arsenal of series waiting for you on this platform. Each one is locked and loaded with the kind of stories that keep you pressing forward no matter what. For those who march to the beat of our soundtrack, all of our music is deployed across every major streaming platform: Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, you name it. Just search for Springfield Syndrome or the audiobook title to add it to your playlist. Your support keeps us in the fight, and we'd be grateful if you'd drop us a review wherever you grab this audiobook. Your feedback is our intel. It helps us improve our operations and helps other listeners find their next objective. Stay strong, stay sharp, and remember, the only easy day was yesterday. This is Thomas Richter, signing off.